All right, we are live on Facebook. In theory, it's all working. No technical glitches. I'm touching wood. I'm touching wood. Hi, I'm Nancy Sheed of Sheed Communications. I am very, 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 very excited to have Vicky Vitarelli of V Marketing to talk to us today. We're going to sort of chat about Branding 101. Vicky and I have been working together on a couple projects, and so we seem to be running into the same questions. And so we just thought, all right, well, let's just take it out live and kind of hash it out in front of other people where we might have some questions. So with that, just a 2-second backstory, Vicky, on sort of what it is that you do or your expertise or what is your message, Vicky?
What is my message? Thanks, Nancy. This is great. And this technology is awesome, by the way. BeLive.tv, right? That's the platform we're on, which is wonderful. So yeah, I've been in marketing my entire adult life. I've been working with all kinds of brands from the New York Jets to MasterCard to really focusing now on health and wellness brands. And healthcare technology is something that I'm really passionate about. So, and working on their brand strategy with what I consider a market-based approach. So understanding the marketplace within which you play as an organization, a brand, a product, service, and how you build your brand within that ecosystem. So I've created a system called the Organized Brand, which is pretty academic. It's the stuff that's been out forever. There's no secret sauce, so to speak, about how to put all these different brand components together, if you will, to rise above the noise and be heard.
But I think you hit the nail on the head, Vicky, and you said it's pretty academic. So I think our goal here today is to take the academics out. And for those of us that total confession, didn't major in marketing, but marketing is kind of a part of all of our lives. If we take the academics out, I think there's still some recurring questions. And I think the hope here is that we're going to talk through kind of 5 questions or 5 steps that if you can get clear on that, you can kind of be your own brand marketer, as it were, or you can, your marketing is going to be easier to do yourself. So yeah, without getting caught up in mission, vision, statement, positioning, and all that, we're going to kind of simplify it for anybody, whether you're, in my world, an author or a writer or a thought leader, whether you have actual services or you actually have a product, there's still these basic standard questions to ask, right?
Yeah, and I think this is a great way to think about things as you approach, practically speaking, now it's the middle of the year. What are you thinking about? How you're going to finish the rest of the year? So now's a great time to sit back and say, how can I finish the year strong to get to my goals, whether you're launching a new product, whether you're, whatever the seasonality is of your brand. Now is a great time to just say, okay, let me sit back and think about this for a minute and reflect on all these different elements. So the first thing I want to talk about is just what is a brand? So a little bit of academics, if you want to bear with me. Okay. It is basically how you tell the story of your product or service to your customers, so that they consider you instead of an alternate product or service within your competitive set, or just something different that they might want to spend their money on. So it's, again, how you tell that story, what that looks like, what it sounds like, and we'll break down each of those areas.
And the reason you and I have started working together is because I was having the experience where people would come to me and say, I need to do my social media marketing. I need to get my email newsletter out. I need to do a website. And what I have come to realize that if we are not clear on all of these elements of their brand, it really makes putting these marketing pieces together kind of double and triple the work, because you end up kind of making it up as you go along, and there are inconsistencies, and it just doesn't have the same kind of pulled together feel as somebody who's truly thought out their brand. So I will admit wholeheartedly, I was like, sure, but you don't need this. I deal with people who are, personal brands, blah, blah, blah. I am a convert, and, I've run up against it. And so that's why I'm very excited that we are working together on a couple of clients for that reason, because the clarity you can get on that just makes all of your marketing efforts 10 times, I won't say easier, but it just pulls it all together. And I feel the ability to have more success in your marketing if you've nailed this to begin with. So that's your plug for why I love what you do. And let's go into question, sort of topic question, bullet number 1 of how you help sort of identify your brand.
Sure. And I think a lot of this, just to keep in mind for anybody who's watching, it is about creating that lens to look through. So just think about when you go to the eye doctor, you know, they're like better, worse, better,
right.
worse.
I like that analogy.
Oh yeah. It's always like, does this make sense? Does that sound better? Does that sound worse? Is that right? Is that wrong? And it's the criteria that you judge these things through. So I think one of the first things is, you know, people are like, oh, brand strategy. I have a logo. I'm good. Brand, you know, I have a logo. It's blue, and I bought the URL for my company, so I'm set.
I'm done.
This is for an early stage company, which that's awesome. Those are key milestones to have, right?
Right.
And so, but your visual identity is one component. It's important, but it's one component of your brand. So that is your logo, your colors, your fonts. I love fonts. I'm an admitted font geek. And, you know, should it be really scripty and styly, or very bold and in red, or should it be purple? Again, depending on what you're communicating to your audience, think about all the colors. You know, Starbucks is green. Nike has that orange and other colors associated with it. So that's just the visual identity around that.
So number one is, what do you look like? Like, what do you, person, brand, product, service, what do you look like? It is
right, the physical attributes.
And that's one piece of a brand. So
one
just
piece,
saying you have your logos and your colors and your font, you're not done. That's number one.
That's number one. And then number two is your communication style. So you have, like I was alluding to a little bit with the fonts, what is your style? Are you leading people? Are you a guide? Are you an authority? What kind of words do you use? And the tone of voice that you use, just in the way that we communicate, you know, that gets represented in what you put out there as well. Are you a softer, nourishing, more, you know, nurturing kind of brand, or?
Oh, you're frozen. I'm hoping you're coming back. Technical difficulties. Have I frozen for you?
Are you like, oh?
Are you back?
I everything seems fine for me on my end.
Okay. You froze on mine, so we're good.
Oh, sorry. So I'll get back. But it's the tone and the voice of how you speak to people, you know, the words that you choose to communicate is what I was saying. So you have your visual identity and then your actual voice, or people talk about it as brand voice, your tone, things like that.
And if I'm going to oversimplify, what do you sound like, right? So number two, what do you sound like? How are you speaking to your customers? How are they hearing you? How are they experiencing the way you're communicating, right?
Right. And I think a good mid-year check, or any time of year check, is when you look across your organization, big or small, every touch point that you have with a customer is not insignificant. I'll give you an example of this. We worked, there was one company, they were, you know, over, you know, about $100 million company, and they had a big staff. So you think everything is perfect at that point. Well, when we were digging around, looking across and auditing all the different touch points, everything looked really great, except we found accounts receivable, when they were sending out overdue notices, which, you know, the goal is get the money in.
Right.
The company's name was misspelled. Yeah, it was a minor detail, but it was, you know, like, come on, guys, let's be professional. And the tone of voice that they used was like, you must pay now. Yet, what we found in their research was that customers loved this company. And so a lot of times, if they didn't pay up, there was a real reason behind it.
Right.
It was just negligence, but there was a disconnect in the tone of voice there. And really, once you get to collections, then you can let the collections people be like, pay up or else. But
right.
This was coming in like the first 30-day notice, and we were like, hold on a minute. Because anyway, it got into a deeper analysis. But little things like that you may take for granted, no one realized it.
Right.
So we had to put that out.
And in terms of what I do when people they're looking for the social media, or even you and I have talked about this, content on the website, right? Like, every about page is different. The way you present yourself on your about page is going to be different when you're clear on your, you know, it's not boilerplate. And I think that's the other thing, especially if you're either a smaller, you know, you don't have a marketing staff, right? And you're a smaller business, you're a solopreneur, or you're a personal brand. If you're not a writer who knows how you sound, it's very easy to just kind of go into boilerplate mode, right? Yes. Or let's say you farm out your writing. you really need to be clear if somebody's helping you with your writing that they get your voice and how you sound. And it's not just about the facts and the figures. It's also about like how you sound. So
exactly. And which gets into the third area to think about as it relates to your brand is what are you really selling? Right. And that sounds like, well, of course, I'm selling a consulting service, or I'm selling a facial cream, or I'm selling a book, in the case you deal with a lot of authors and writers. And you're selling that physical thing, even if it is a service. And even within services, you're sort of productizing your services to some degree, right? But you need to think about it in terms of the product and service, but also what is the promise? Okay. So you're selling something, it could be, you're selling a cream for someone's face that's giving them moisturization, which at the end of the day, they're going to feel better, look better, be more confident. So you might be selling some of those benefits tied to that. And in the case of your authors, I'm sure you see this all the time, there's an underlying message, right?
Exactly.
Like in the case of Laura or someone else, that they're selling being, efficient with your time.
Right.
Which better than I do as it relates to Laura's stuff, what, her underlying message.
And I think that's clear because what happens also over in the consulting services thought leader people is, well, they have a lot of opinions about a lot of different things, whether it's how to do this better, especially if you're a consultant, or I can actually talk about this, this, and this. But to your point, getting really clear on what is your message that is the underlying or overarching umbrella, right? Like what is the message under which all of this fits? What is it, when you wake up in the morning, everything that you're doing fits under this message, right?
Right. And I'll give another great example. When I worked at MasterCard, it was a massive repositioning, which ultimately got us to the Priceless campaign. For those who remember, it's still out there and on air, but it was the original strategy that dictated the campaign. What they found out is, there's only, at the time, 2 major payment systems, Visa and MasterCard. And that's still pretty much the case today. There's just different platforms you may use to use that. We found out that MasterCard was in the back of the wallet, like the safe card. It wasn't the primary card and what we called top of wallet at the time. Right. And, you could look at that and be like, oh, that kind of stinks, know, and we're in the back of in the wallet and no one's pulling us out. What are we going to do? But what we did is we turned that around and said, we're there because people have confidence that we're going to work if the first one doesn't.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So it was a safety net. So we really leveraged this notion of like safety. We're always there for those moments, not when you get rejected, but for those really important moments that have to happen.
Right.
Which turned out to be that real conversation with your son at a baseball game,
right,
or at your friend's wedding, all those priceless moments, if you will, that have to happen no matter what. So people don't realize that. We were like number 2, but we turned it on its head to say we're there when, without saying when all else fails, So it was the best way to pay for everything that matters.
I love that backstory.
A little backstory there, which I always love to land on that because so many times you have to look at the positives, no matter where you are in the heap of your competitive set. Why are people interested in you or not interested in you, and how can you turn that on its head and not apologize for that?
Right.
Sometimes there are real problems and you have to address it.
That's your strength. So to be clear, number 3 is kind of what's your promise, what's your message, what is it, and that's not necessarily a tangible. Like it's not that it's a very actual intangible, but getting clear about how it affects everything that you're doing.
Right. The benefits of what you're selling and the benefits around it. Yes, for sure.
Which leads us to number 4, which is,
who are you selling that to?
Okay.
I hear a lot of times, well, everybody needs my product or service. Everyone can use this. Everybody can. That doesn't mean everybody needs it or wants it. Or you have to make a big case and spend a lot of money to make sure everybody knows about it. But let's really focus in on who is going to get the most benefit for what you're selling and really clarifying that. And sometimes people express it as like, well, women need this, or men, or kids, or teens. Gen Z is a big topic coming up right now, which are kids that are still in school. And so I think the actual demographics is one thing, like who needs this, and it could be a geographic, demographic, women, men, age. Right. However, you really need to uncover the mindset, right? Where's their head at? What are they thinking? why don't they already have your product or service if everybody really needs it? And what's the barriers? What's in their mind, right? So everybody could be more time efficient reading Laura's books, right? But how come someone isn't who, maybe like, I don't have enough time. How do I get it all done?
And again, when you're clear on that, it comes full circle and goes back to how you're communicating. Because what my experience is if you're really clear on that and you have that, we're going to throw out the word avatar. If you have that person, that you're writing your email to, right? Like I just had another client and his email box was like, hey, everyone. I was like, no. You need to have, when you're writing your email blast, you need to have in your brain the one person who is your ideal client, reader, needer of your services, right? In your brain when you're writing that person, because that reinforces, you're going to speak to them much more directly when they're in your brain and you know who you're talking to versus this kind of like, I'm for everybody. So I'm going to have generic communications and it's not going to appeal to anybody because you're going to have cast such a wide net.
I mean, to get a teeny bit academic, but this is a simple one, so I had a client who has buyers across the world, across the globe. And they were planning on doing a Memorial Day promotion. And I said, well, not everybody celebrates Memorial Day except for in the United States. And even within the US, Memorial Day is a bigger deal than not in some other places.
Right.
It's a holiday on the calendar, but some places it's like summer and other places it's like a day off.
Right.
So I said, you need to think about, yay, Memorial Day, but then go into your list. Here's where it gets academic and start doing some segmentation.
That's not academic. That's strategic.
US customers, right? U.S. customers versus non-U.S. And maybe there's holidays that are relevant or special days off, bank holidays, etc., that are relevant to them that you need to be leveraging.
Right.
So that's another way to know who you're talking to and really understand.
Right. No, I love that. Okay, so number 4, who are you? Who are your people? Is what I like to say. Who's your tribe? Who are your people? Who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to build a community of that are engaged in whatever it is that you're doing, saying, selling, buying?
Right. And also, where do they hang out?
Yeah. No, I mean,
platforms.
These sound very simple, but you and I know, like, really getting clear on these is not a straightforward exercise. And it's also very hard to do for yourself sometimes because you get caught up in the weeds. But I digress.
No, that's okay. But that leads us to... And we didn't plan it this hard, everybody.
I just looked at. I was like, oh, what's that?
How do you find this stuff out? So whether you're starting a business or you're well established and you just want to take a look, I had a client once say, "Well, I know my customers. My customer service lines are busy all the time. Our sales are renewing. We're growing. It's a wonderful place to be.
Right.
We're good." Well, you need to talk to your customers and listen to them. And it's the difference as you and I talk about talking versus listening. So pull it out of them a little bit more, do some research. This is where the market-based piece of this comes, is talk to them specifically about how is your experience? What have you been up to lately? How is this service or product helping your life? Why did you choose it? What else did you consider while you were thinking about before you purchased us or after? Are you as satisfied? Did we meet your expectations? I mean, it goes on and on how you can query your customers or your prospects. If you're like, I'm just starting out, I don't have customers yet.
Right.
Well, you can go to people that you think are your prospects to really understand what they feel or how they're thinking about your business or the category that you're in.
Exactly. And I think the key here is the listening and to just apply it sort of to people that are more service-based or, in the author thought leader, ask her to say, what are the top 10 questions you get asked over and over again by the people who want to work with you, right? Like they're telling you right there where their pain points are. They're telling you what information they need from you. And that's just, again, a great way to sort of start and figure out how that fits in. That helps you figure out where you fit into the marketplace, but also then how you can best serve them, speak to them, show up for them.
Right, exactly.
Continue the relationship, right?
Right. Knowing those pain points and just what's going on in their head helps you shape a lot of this stuff. We had one company that I worked for was the scenario that I described. They were like, their business was growing explosively. And I said, it's still important that we know why. Like, you have a very important service right now that you're providing. We know that. But what are you doing that's different than your competitor? Because there are people who do what you do. And what we found out surprised everybody. But when we went out and did our customer research, everyone talked about how much they loved the customer support team. Like, the word love came up more than I have ever seen in any research I've ever done. And people were like, I love this person, calling out people specifically. I love service. They always help me. They make my job easier. They're wonderful people. They're so nice. So that informed us to say, don't mess with customer service, no matter what we do moving forward. Like, maintain that, nurture that whole thing that's going on there, and make it even better.
Right.
As opposed to maybe investing in another area or thinking, oh, we're good, customers are happy. Just, you don't want to overload them because you want to keep all that love literally happening. And I think it's really hard when you think about, is there a brand you love?
Right.
But you would say that too. I always challenge everybody, like, what brands do you love? I don't know, It's interesting.
You were also, to cut you up, but from the market research standpoint, but people don't have to have a fancy schmancy market research in place. Like, this is where technology and these modern tools of literally social media, literally think about the replies you're getting on your email list. Think about the comments you're getting on your website form, right? Like, or if you're still, more of a phone-based up, what are the first 10 things people are asking you or saying to you? And I think, again, we love it if you have a sophisticated market research, but you don't have to have all of those pieces in place to be able to, kind of communicate and have conversations with your, again, I go back to tribe, people, community to see where they are, but really listen, and I can tell you anecdotally, for a lot of my clients, it's where they figure out what their next book might be, or what their next idea, or where they can test the waters with, I'm thinking about a webinar for this, or I'm thinking about a book for this. And it's a great place to be able to kind of test the waters where 20 years ago you couldn't do this, right? Like, it's a whole lot easier to be able to sort of go out and test these ideas and see, all right, this is working. We want to try a tweak on this to see if it's working. Can we make it better, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think people use a phrase called social listening, which means you can just troll some of the Facebook groups, look at a blog, look at the comments. When I read the New York Times, I love reading the comments to articles, sometimes more than the article. I know it's a tough time, but my one skincare client, she's thinking about launching a new product. I'll leave it at that. And we wanted to see what some folks were saying. And we went onto some Facebook groups that were dedicated to the skincare category just to read what people were talking about as it related to this certain kind of product. And there was a lot of things that were surprising to us, and just the perceptions and how the conversation went down that really helped guide
informing
the process. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna, as we do, wrap up so we don't go too in the weeds. So we would kind of like the 5 steps of doing your own brand audit or getting clear about your brand. Like, not to oversimplify it, but this is a great place to start if you are either in pivot mode or something's not working. But before you reach out to somebody to say, I need a new strategy for this, these are the questions that you and I both, talk to our clients about, or as we're working together, like getting complete and utter clarity on these. And so the first one is, what do you look like? Like, the visual aspects, right? We're not going to get into fancy words. The second one, what do you sound like? How are you communicating? 3, what is either your promise of your product, or what is your message? Like, what do you stand for? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is that, overarching? Number 4, is the who, right?
No, who are you selling to? Who's your audience? And the clearer you are on that, on all this stuff, but really the clearer you are on who you're selling to, that focus is it's also energizing.
It is because it goes back to, then we get into the marketing and the communicating and the writing and the social media strategy, it just all falls into place so much easier. And then which leads to number 5, what nuggets can you discern from, communicating with your tribe and really not necessarily talking to them, but asking questions and really listening.
Right. Getting the true feedback, whether it's through a Google form or a Facebook quick survey quiz thing, or just having a customer service rep say, can I just ask you 2 questions before we get off the phone really fast,
Exactly. And have really good feedback. This was fun.
This is great. I want to go and do this right now. We are doing it right now
I know, but I think there's an element, and again, I've known you for more than 3 years, and I think everybody comes at this term and understanding what brand is from a myriad of different points. And so I think just distilling it into some simplified terms really helps people, or at least it helps me, because like I said, I have become a convert that if you're not clear on that, all the stuff that we're working on is going to be a bit of a struggle. So I can't thank you enough for helping make this, what can sometimes seem overwhelming, a little more simplified.
Well, thank you. This was fun. I always enjoy talking about this stuff. So
thank you. And we'll have links and post it, and I'll work on trying to get some nuggets as well to share on this so we can post some things. But if anybody else have questions, post them. Vicky and I will comment where we can.
Yep, absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks, Nancy. Bye.